Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host, Michael Roser, and today, on the 10th of June, 2021, I'd like to welcome back a very good friend of mine, Lorilei Potvin. Now, you've seen her on one of our episodes recently. Very, very awesome woman, incredible insight, and I have talked her up to no end, but guess what? She lives up to every single adjective that I throw at her, and this is the truth. Yeah. Folks, we're going to have a fantastic evening tonight. We're going to be speaking on the subject of sacred geometry and its significance in way of creation. Well, let's start there, I suppose. And we're also going to cover a little bit in respect to remote viewing, because this has actually been a hotter topic lately. And I'm only saying that because people continue to revisit some of these topics as time goes on. Now, we all understand that a lot of these government organizations were using and testing and experimenting different methods of remote viewing. And we'll get into that. But it was a little while ago. We were looking some years back. But how do we know that it hasn't still been used since or implemented in other ways? Maybe they perfected it. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. And I'd like to do the justice to my guest, being so nice to be here with us tonight, and invite her to come in on the conversation as well. Just before I do that, I want to give a quick shout out to a few people here. Thank you for joining all us tonight, guys. I appreciate you all being here. KO, what's up, man? Nice to see you. Den Bub, welcome to the show. Caleb Ben, good to see you, my friend. Long Island Bigfoot, what's up, brother? Coral Ann, I hope you look good in blue. I saw it on other channels. I thought, well, maybe we could use a little blue around here. I thought about redecorating, so you came to mind. Hey, congratulations on the wretch, and thank you for your help here at Dark Hour Paranormal. Dark Sky Files, what's up, my friend? Alien Girl 111. How are you tonight? Thank you for being here. Scotty B, welcome to the show. Jay Serno, nice to see you, my friend. Eggneck Face, what's up, buddy? Welcome back. And who else have we got here I haven't mentioned, at least within the chat itself? Neats B, what's up, pal? Cashew Gesundheit, good to see you. Thanks for being here tonight. And thank you for all of your help behind the scenes and on stage at Dark Hour Paranormal. Guys, without further ado, I missed something. Here. Blue Chicken with the $2 super chat. Guys, thank you very much. Blue Chicken, I appreciate you from the heart, brother. Yes, the super chat is open. Thank you for the reminder, Blue Chicken. And once again, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And of course, all the help that you provide on the stage and behind the scenes, being a part of Dark Hour Paranormal in respect to the organization and presentation. Thanks a lot, my friend. All right, let's get going here, guys. And we're going to have a hell of a night ahead of us here. I've already wasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Here we go. Lorilei, welcome to the show. Thank you for your patience and my long-winded intro. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Thanks. How are you? Thanks so much for having me. We're already getting into this great discussion. You said we need to go live and have this conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes nothing. You get people together here with like minds the way that we do. And next thing you know, we're talking about it. And that's all content for the show. But you know what? These sort of conversations we have, in the peripherals, we have them in the public eye. It's important to keep some of these subjects in mind. So tonight, we're going to get into a little bit of sacred geometry. And although I know this isn't your first line of study, which actually it isn't mine either, it's something I'm very interested in and still understand the importance of it. What are your thoughts generally on sacred geometry in respect to being able to explain what we live in respect to the third dimension, or how it might play a part in life? We were talking a little bit about that before the show.
Yeah, well, first of all, let people know. If some people probably don't know who I am, though. It sounds like you were talking.
I'm so sorry.
Well, let them know so they know where I'm coming from with the background. So I'm from Canada. I'm a psychic medium. I'm also a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, medical intuitive, spiritual teacher and mentor, a podcaster of my own show. And we'll talk about that later because Michael's going to be visiting my show on Monday night. And I'm a registered nurse. So now when you ask me, like I said, when we've had many conversations, and folks, they can go for hours because the two of us just seem to know so many different things that complement each other that we wanted to know something about. So with sacred geometry, you forced me to take a good look at it. And the one thing that was mind blowing to me about sacred geometry, I'm going to show you because you guys, I make resin, and these are things you can take into like a meditation, put crystals on it. It might be hard to see, but this is what's called the flower of life. And it's actually a bunch of intersecting circles. But what blew my mind, I worked in labor and delivery, the NICU, maternal newborn. So when I started looking at this, I was kicking myself. Being a nurse, I should have known this. But every single human being on this planet, when we start with two little cells, one from your mother, one from your father. But as they join and start to split and reproduce, they create the flower of life. So as it goes, most of the stuff is very ancient, and everything on this planet can relate to the geometry, the number of lines. It's infinite, and this pattern goes into almost every type of creation on the planet, which is so amazing. So what it hit me with when I got a message from Spirit, when that realization came through, with that we start out life with part of the circle of life as the cells, as I called it, a blastula, which it is, before it actually attaches to the placenta. I know I'm getting into a bit of TMI. Then it becomes a fetus. It's just a ball of cells, but it actually creates this. So what it did for me was, like I said, with Spirit, it made me realize how we truly are all connected, all part of one of each other, part of this whole planet, part of everything on it, because this pattern, we start out with it, and you can relate it to anything on the planet.
Well said. Incredibly well said. That's in a nutshell how I feel about it too, that this is a method of analysis which satiates the right brain and the left brain. And the way that it does that is that you have the mathematics, you have the quantification that goes in the left brain interpretation, and yet you have the intuitive side that really understands and enjoys the complex nature of chaos and perhaps randomness that is also entwined in this. But again, we have within this particular shape that Lorilei is showing here with the flower of life, essentially duality encompassed in this one design. Now, how did we get to this particular point? You know, Lorilei is mentioning here that, you know, you start with two cells as they'll come together, and, you know, things will continue on in respect to the evolution. There is an entire process. It starts with the zygote, I think, yes. Wherein you have 8 core cells, which I believe are stored just underneath your belly button. They call it the dantian in certain modalities there. But these 8 cells, if I'm not mistaken, you have them until the day you die. They actually stay with you. They don't pass, and they cannot be replaced, of course, if something happens. But either way, that's really interesting to look at it. And one of the interesting shapes that, at least the preliminary shapes that I'm really interested in, is the Vesica piscis. And you know what? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I tried looking it up before I got on the show. I didn't give myself enough time. So there we go. Vesica's piscis. Now, what is this? All right. So when you have two circles come together, you have your Venn diagram. That intersecting point, which creates this football shape, right, is also the shape of our eye. In fact, philosophically, when it deals with sacred geometry, this particular shape deals exclusively with light. So already within the very preliminary constructs of sacred geometry, you have light expressed. Now that's pretty fascinating. What about, okay, so, I mean, we were talking, I'm thinking here because my mind's going a million miles here. Where do we want to go next? We were talking a little bit before the show about something which I just completely lost, but it'll come back to me. Let's talk about the Merkaba. The Merkaba.
Well, before we go to the Merkaba, what I want to tell people about, okay, so this shape, it's backwards, okay, the flower of life. There's a really great video on YouTube. It's quite old, actually. It's 8 years old. but I'm going to send you there because it talks about a lot of this stuff very, not simplistically, but very well that you could understand it if you've never even looked. Sorry, I got the volume on here. That you've never even looked at sacred geometry. I'm going to find it for you. Spirit Science is the channel, and there's a reason why I mention it. It is called, where are you? It's called Sacred Geometry 101. But in there, it's going to talk about actually Morgan Freeman's show that he had many years ago, talking about the mysteries of life. But they get into, there is a game you can play. The website doesn't work anymore, but that's okay. And it's called the Flower of Life game. And so you can either, download, copy it, like a picture of this. You can draw it yourself, because you even go over how to draw it with a compass. But you start in the middle, and at each intersecting point, you can start with any idea at all. So I think they picked consciousness or something. And then you start connecting the points and anything that comes to mind that relates, and you build around and out. And by the time you get to the top, they ended up with the word master, but everything that they had come up with explained it. And they didn't think of this ahead of time. They said you can use it for fun. You involve more people, then you're getting into the universal consciousness, right? You're getting other people's ideas, melding, almost creating like a mastermind, if you will, focusing on this. And it was so cool that I thought, yeah, what a great way. Like I'm going to try it actually to see if you could solve some kind of problem that you're trying to figure out. Never know. So it's actually, what it's called is, I think he called it, or the guy, I think it's a guy that does this video, Helixale game. But if you just look up the Flower of Life game. So again, the site doesn't work, but you won't need the board game. Like I said, all you have to do is draw the pattern. It's really easy. So you were saying the Merkaba.
Yeah, I was going to jump on this comment. Denbub says, making babies at home, the Flower of Life game. Sounds marketable, man. All right, thanks, man. I gotta chuckle out of that. Yeah, so I mean, basically, when we're moving into the Merkaba as a subject, before we do that, actually, I brought up a website that I was looking at earlier, because coming back for me, I mean, I studied sacred geometry in the late 90s into the early 2000s, and that was the entirety of my work in that field. I've always, kind of looked at it here and there just to kind of refresh a memory, but coming back for me, some of this is from the past, and I have to revisit it this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys some of the basic shapes here. I'm going to read a little bit here from what we're looking at. I hope everybody can see. Lorilei, how's that look? Well, you have a smaller screen, so maybe you can't see it, but I'll be reading it. Say again?
What's the website? And I'll grab it so I'm on the same page.
Oh, good point. I'm going to post it right here. Perfect. And let me give it to you for some reason I don't have the private chat. Okay. So okay. The website is in the chat, guys. Go ahead and click on that if you want to follow along.
Oh, good. I found it.
So, perfect. It's actually, it's one of the first ones.
Too, so I can see what you're posting. So that's great. Actually, I can go right on here. Yeah, so I can see what you're doing too. Absolutely. Awesome site.
All right, so we've got, and this is pretty comprehensive for a basic introduction here. So I'm just going to read a couple things for you. Sacred geometry is often referred to as the architecture of the universe. It is found throughout the natural world. It is all around us and is one of the very few subjects that satisfy, this is what I was talking about earlier, both the left brain and right hemispheres simultaneously. It satisfies the left brain desire for logical, sequential, and objective data. It also satisfies the right brain's desire for random, intuitive, and subjective data. Wow, he said it much better than I did. It is simply not possible to cover all aspects of sacred geometry, although I will try to include as much as I possibly can in this article. And again, this is a really great introduction as we're moving forward here. So what I've brought down to here is the Vesica piscis, and I'm going to describe it to you in the way that he gives the definition. The Vesica piscis is a mathematical shape formed by intersecting two identical circles so that the center of each circle intersects the perimeter of the other. Vesica piscis is commonly used for Venn diagrams in various art and seals organizations. And the various other symbols can be derived from the Vesica piscis include the Ikathis. I don't know how to say that one. I'm so sorry. It's also known as the Jesus fish. It's this particular shape.
Okay. I think
The
it's the
triqueta
ichthys.
symbol.
The ichthys.
What is it?
Isn't it?
Ichthys.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, I'm glad you're here. Jesus, I should have talked to you before we did this. So the triqueta symbol and the Raylo triangle. It has also been a symbol used by Freemasons for many years, and historically, the Vesica piscis has been used as a system of proportions for architecture, illustrated in the works of Vitruvius.
Yeah.
So people have been using what we know as sacred geometry for a very long time, and perhaps when you talk about ancient civilizations and the way of their measurement, such as the megalithic yard, maybe that has something to do with sacred geometry, because again, all of these dimensions are in there. What are your thoughts, Lorilei?
My brain's going now because I'm thinking of the cubit. Like, why did they have the cubit versus for feet and inches, or now there's the metric system depending where you live. So I have to agree with you, because I've seen all these symbols, but again, I didn't know all the names, like the Vesica piscis. I did not know that. But you know what went through my mind when you were talking about this is how anything on this planet that is good can be used for bad. And I'm thinking of a lot of the symbols that we are seeing, that we accept every day in everyday life, and what it really means. And what I don't think people think about that, right? Like, you look at the labyrinth, and it may not be mentioned on this page, but the labyrinth also, or the spiral of life, is another significant shape that is on this planet in practically everything, including our DNA with the double strand helix that we have, right? So you start looking at where these are used, or Freemasonry, for example, the amount of symbology that they use. And we're saying this is sacred geometry. But I was thinking about a lot of these things too before we came on the show, Michael, because doing crystal Reiki, even with Reiki, we use certain symbols that we empower with energy to help with the healing process. And I truly believe, where there's good, there's evil. And where we live on the planet, a lot of evil places that use a lot of this symbology also empower it, or know the power behind this ancient symbology, and utilize it. And that's what sort of triggered it for me, was the Freemasonry. Now, I'm not saying everybody that's a Freemason is evil. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, as you go up the levels and you dig deeper and deeper, you'll see a lot of versions of these symbols. And even when you get into brands too.
Absolutely. And kind of to express on that a little bit more here, I believe it was the Freemasons who had this particular symbol for many years, and they did not release it to the public at large. I mean, it's not like a release today where you could broadcast, everybody's going to see it, but they tucked it away deep within their folds so that nobody had access to it, because they realized at that time that people would more than likely, given the state of the world and the consciousness, would be using this for a more deleterious effect. So that's very curious to look at, knowing this is a very sacred symbol. And you brought up the spirals, and that was something I wanted to touch upon too. So we talk about sacred geometry as being, the architecture of the universe, as this article describes. Well, how does that fit in exactly? Where do we have an example of that? Take any living flora, any plant that you can find. You're going to see, when you look through and you calculate the distances between the leaves and the stems and whatever else is on the plant, you're going to find this Fibonacci spiral that goes up. Yeah, so we talk about the Fibonacci spiral, and I've mentioned this before. The Fibonacci spiral has a beginning and it has an end. This is what we see reflected in nature, right? But where did the Fibonacci spiral come from? Came from the golden mean spiral, which essentially is the same thing, except the proportions are just so that it has no beginning and it has no end. So what it looks like, what it appears to be, is that the universe's natural existence is actually infinite. And we're looking at this again in a visual sense, in a mathematical sense, with the golden mean the golden mean spiral. But nature, as we knew it, decided that it had to have a beginning and an end. So it actually augmented this golden mean spiral in such a minute way that it came up with the Fibonacci, wherein it could now experience a beginning and an end. If that was one possibility that came out of the golden mean spiral, I wonder how many other possibilities are there, and if those implications would actually have life behind them in the way of growth. It's a really curious thing to look at, again, when you start getting into the actual geometry here.
I have to agree with you that, oh, here comes my cat. She never comes up. Guys might get to see my cat. She's usually quite shy.
Oh boy.
But I agree with you. Now that we're talking about light and symbols, and I don't think, well, we can break this down to science even, that everything is energy on this planet. One of the laws of physics is energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but transferred from one place to another if necessary, right? What people don't realize too is the power of your words and your emotions and your thoughts, right? And then when you start using symbology and things like this, or even, some of the symbols of Reiki, and you can attune them with whatever energy you want, that makes it that much more powerful. Or we even look at things like witchcraft or alchemy or the occult, and the symbology that they use and how powerful this is, with the belief in it, with again, I'll use the word attunement, but when we add something vocal to it, or some singing to it, that really amplifies the energy behind the symbol. So there's a lot to this, and I mean, we could spend a whole year talking about this, because everything also breaks down, I think, into numbers, and numbers don't lie. So I think that that's a place, I think that's why we have time on this planet, because as I understand it, across the veil, if you will, they don't have time. They don't have what we have. And you try and wrap your human brain around having no time, and how you could be in 1,000 different places at once, and so on and so forth. I think it's almost like a gift from the creator, if you will, giving us numbers that are absolute concrete, a place to start, and a lot of these symbols that we have that we can utilize in our own lives. Like, I can't remember if we said this on air or off, but say taking into Metatron's cube there, I see up in the right hand corner. And again, that's another grid I have, and I made it so that you can put crystals on here. Take this into a meditation. It will blow your mind, depending on what crystals you use, what doorways it will open. And it's really cool, because with a lot of people waking up nowadays, they're starting to wake up to spirituality. And very quickly, not to get off topic, but I had somebody come ask me, their partner had bought a 5G Wi-Fi connection and router. Sorry, I was thinking of the word. And they're very sensitive to it. And their partner won't get rid of it because it was expensive. And she was asking me, how am I going to live with this? And so I talked to her about certain crystals that can help. And she said, I don't know anything about those. Are those, do they work? And I said, do they work? So what happened was, I suggested possibly obsidian, which is a darker black type of crystal, really helps absorb energy. Some of the things we use in orgonite, which is something else we'll talk about in a bit that I'm making, it helps absorb EMF and things like that. Well, lo and behold, it was her birthday the next day. So she went out and got an obsidian bracelet. But she also saw another crystal that was really, really pretty. It was a pink color. I can't remember what the name was. And she happened to be holding them both in her hands, and her hands started to vibrate. And she just could not believe this, because she thought they were just a bunch of rocks. Again, another gift from the universe, or the creator, if you will. Because they're not just pretty, they do all kinds of things. And then you can even get into, there's my brain is not working tonight. I apologize. I'm trying to think of his name.
Okay. Mine wasn't working last night. We're good. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna look him up. My friend Dan Willis worked with him. He was a scientist with IBM, and he cut a certain type of crystal. Let me look it up for you. But he wasn't even into crystals. It was the guy that was responsible for IBM. Remember the old DVDs with the foil coating? He was the one that created this. He was a pure scientist. He did not believe in crystals whatsoever. But when he retired, for some reason, he started looking at the quartz crystal and why it was always included in the watch, old wind-up watches for a battery. And he started researching it, and he came up with a way with a certain degree to cut quartz crystal. You should see how those heal. They turn hot. Again, we're talking about numbers. We're talking almost about symbology with the patterns that he's using, right? And to be able to unlock that. Very quickly, I wanted to add that video that I also shared from Spirit Science. They get into a British website that gets into fractals and these symbols, and it's like a meditation but a visual, and you watch it and they claim it will unlock a lot of the DNA that's been locked for humanity, to unlock a lot of our potential and gifts. Just let me let my cat out. She's driving me nuts.
Yeah, not a problem. I thought she might have something to say. I mean, you know, we got time. She's got something to add. So
that's why I'm distracted, because she's just carrying on there. She's never usually in here with me. Sorry, guys. I have one of these crystals. Vogel. There you go. I knew it would come to me. Marcel Vogel. Now, Marcel Vogel is not alive anymore. This is the guy from IBM that discovered the Vogel crystal.
okay.
But there's only one person on the planet that knows how to cut them. So there's a lot of fakes, or a lot of people that have copied. I have a copy, because to get a real Marcel Vogel crystal, you're looking like probably 10 to 20 grand. I have one, and I've used it on my son. I had to heal something on him. That thing was getting like almost red hot and vibrating. And I kid you not, like literally something getting smaller before my eyes. Just incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So when you look at this kind of symbology and the numbers, that's where I'm going with all this. People do, and we're seeing this, like more and more people are buying these symbols, putting them like a air freshener or a wall hanging, not realizing the power behind something like that and how we could all utilize it. Like who would ever have thought somebody would have created a program that you can watch, it can unlock all the levels of your DNA that have been blocked with being in this regular reality, being exposed to negativity. That, like I said, if you get a chance to watch it, it's on Spirit Science, and it was called Sacred Geometry 101. It's not that long of a video, but it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. I mean, again, a lot of the details that go into sacred geometry, it's easy to grasp these. I mean, you'd think, well, I mean, there's a lot of math involved. There may be some sort of interpretation of physics and so forth. It's really not that complicated until you get down to like the very nitty gritty, and then you're talking about atoms and so forth and understanding those sort of measurements. But again, it's still very preliminary in respect to perhaps some of the depth that our other sciences do go into. I think that by and large, when you're looking at sacred geometry and, you're starting to recognize these things in nature, we come back to how this might, play in with us. And we have an auric field has been reported. This can actually be measured in many different ways. So it's quantifiable that not only do we have an electric field, but we have an auric field that's made of some other type of energy. I'm sure somebody out there who studied this in the way of mechanics, at least, can tell you a little bit more about what that makeup actually is, the way that we would interpret it in the scientific community.
And I gotta add something
go ahead.
very quickly. Once you understand about energy, you can actually pull that auric field in when you're around somebody very negative, or when you walk into a room. And many of us are sensitive. You can feel like there was just an argument here or a fight, and you want to maybe you want to clear the energy, make it more positive. You can do that. And they've shown it through Carillion photography and things like that. We are capable of doing things like this. And it's all a matter of becoming aware of all these things and just practice. It's like a muscle with anything.
Now, the interesting thing, and you just mentioned that, it reminds me of a time where I felt like I could walk into a room and maybe do an experiment, with somebody else and say, okay, so we feel the energy in the room. Let's try to manipulate this in one sense. Let's try to put some pressure in here. Let's try to open it up a little bit and see if the other person can feel the effect of what your concentration is doing. I've relayed the story a couple times, too, I think, actually, throughout my career here, in respect to an experience I had with this particular method of meditation. Now, we were in a hotel.
I'm going to grab something while you're talking because I
Yeah,
want to show you
right
something.
ahead.
Keep talking, Michael. Sorry, I want to grab it.
Not a problem. We were in a hotel, it was a, Jesus Christ, conference room. Guess my
Okay.
tongue is still not right from last night. I don't know why.
So,
But anyway, so we were in this conference room and they're demonstrating this particular modality of meditation, which I won't go into at the moment, but suffice to say, when this person started going into the meditation and breathing, all of a sudden you felt this buzzy light. I don't know how to describe it. It was a very buzzy, vibrating lightness come up and rise. And of course, all the hairs on your body stand straight up. And I looked over to one of my friends I was with, who's not a spiritual person, especially not in the way, that I interpret energy and so forth, but he's open. And, I kind of looked at him and he looked at me at the same time. And I can't remember. It was one of us, said, "Do you feel that?" And he goes, I remember him responding saying, "Yes, I do. What is it?" I said, "That's energy." And he goes, "Oh my God." And everybody in that room was having this physical response to this one person doing this meditation that was actually dealing with Kundalini. I'm not sure if that's relevant. It might be because Kundalini is very powerful.
I have a video on my YouTube channel where I teach people how to feel energy, and I walk you through what the colors of energy mean to you. So I don't tell you, well, blue is for this and red is for that, but I show you how to create a ball of energy, play with a ball of energy, and then I walk through a few colors and I walk the person through, for you personally, what does this mean? So, because red for me might mean something totally different, red for you.
Absolutely. Very quickly, I want to apologize. I think I missed a super chat back there. I think Long Island Bigfoot gave me a $5 super chat. Thank you very much, brother. You don't have to do that, man. Come on. I appreciate you, though. Thank you so much. Goes right in.
One. I see.
Yep, we got this one here from Alex Oin. And please, dude, I meant to ask you earlier when I called you how to pronounce your last name. I think it's Oin. If it's not, please correct me. I'm more than happy. Alex Oin, Under the Veil, $15 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Alex is actually going to come on the show next week. I think he'll be on Wednesday evening. And let me tell you, you guys are in for one hell of a ride. That's what I can tell you, man. This guy has all sorts of information and experience in the way of his life that will absolutely blow you away. But thank you very much, my friend. I do appreciate your support here, brother. Okay, so let's see. I lost off where we were.
Okay, well, what
sorry.
You're talking about Kundalini, but somebody I mentioned in the comments was talking about DMT. What an incredible experience and what you can experience. Yes, that can happen. There's another great YouTube channel on here called iDoser. They have the world's most powerful DMT virtual drug through meditation. They use something called binaural beats and certain tones, hertz tones, and it unlocks that part of your brain that would interact with the actual drug. And they have it for everything, every drug you can think of. If you're in pain, if you need healing, really cool, powerful channel. So, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, what do you think? How do you think? Okay, so and I know I've seen these. I've followed the binaural beats for a very long time. In fact, my mother gave me a CD, way back in the 90s. But as we've moved on, I'm going to use this as an example because this is very relatable. A lot of people who enjoy cannabis, and they did come out with a CD that was called Legally High, and essentially it was 3 tracks that you would listen to, and it would put you in different states where it would apparently affect that part of your brain, and of course you have the alpha, beta waves, and so forth. So my question is, if they're doing something in the way of trying to replicate the effects of, let's say, oxycodone or codeine or one of those medical prescribed medications there, I wonder how they're aligning the frequencies where, I mean, of course, those medications carry their own energetic signatures. I wonder how they're quantifying that. What do you think? I really don't know. I really have no idea.
The way I feel about it, I'm a chronic pain sufferer. I don't use any of those types of medications. I have no problem if anybody does. I always say it's not my job to judge for anything. But the way I understand it is what it does, because our own bodies, you've heard of runner's high, for example, people that are marathon runners and they actually feel high. It's from the natural source of endorphins in your body. So I have a feeling, and from the little bit of research that I've done on this, that's what they're tweaking. So, because when you said that, like oxycodone, morphine, I'm thinking that's a huge addiction issues and problems with that. But because you're not actually taking the physical source, what I believe they're doing is sort of triggering or unlocking that part of the brain that would normally secrete the endorphins and probably serotonin and all those things that you get if you were taking the actual physical drug. So to me, I would say I would think it would be a safer alternative, especially if you were going to have the same effects. I can't say whether or not you will, but I will tell you, being a chronic pain sufferer, and this is the only channel I use binaural beats quite a bit when if I'm having a really bad day. I'll just plug them in like when I'm going to sleep, or if I'm going to lay down for an hour. They do work. But you also mentioned Kundalini. Now, Kundalini is that life force energy that when we have a spiritual awakening, you will hear people having major, major symptoms. And you'll hear somebody say, oh, maybe you're having a Kundalini awakening. I actually introduced a friend of mine that's new to spirituality. And I said, the perfect time to do things like this is when you're sleeping. You're the most open. Something like binaural beats. You can find tons of these free things on here to play with. Plug it in when you're sleeping, turn it down super low so you can barely hear it, and then see what happens in the morning. I swear to God, he was messaging me every day. Oh my God, I'm like jumping out of the bed. I have so much energy. You wouldn't believe what I'm experiencing in the way of visions with. Now, that's not the same for everybody. It'll be unusual, but it's important to unlock that, because especially if we are going into this ascension of 5D that we're talking about during these tumultuous times, those are certain things that you kind of want to unlock if you can, and get into balance and sort of manage. Plus, I believe if you do it this way versus having this massive Kundalini awakening, people are talking about shocking pains and all kinds of things. So this seems like a kinder, gentler way to do it, if you will. It's just my thoughts on it, but
Oh, very, very well thought out there too. You jogged my thoughts here. Maybe it's not the medication that they'd be trying to replicate, but again, the effect in the
that's how
physical sense on the brain. Now, I mean, it would be easy to explain this because perhaps these frequencies actually cause a resonance within that particular part of the brain.
yeah.
Again, it's a physical anomaly. That's really curious to think about. We've talked about many times in the way of healing, if you were able to perhaps project a certain frequency, and I'm just going to say it that way, even though I think it's more of a set of frequencies at a particular issue. Let's say you had a tumor. Okay, so you have the energetic signature and resonance of that tumor, put it out of phase. So you switch it around. You're shooting the same exact signature at it, but you're just mirroring it backwards. In doing that, you should cancel.
Okay, it's not even that complicated. So with crystal reiki or whatever, when I do that, people will say, oh my God, you're healing me. No, I'm not. I'm just the mailman. So I say, so what I do is I'm connecting with source energy and grounded, and we're meant to run energy through our body. So when I'm working with someone, what I do is I ask for their guides, my guides, the angels, whoever else is around. We have healers on the other side to assist me to be able to send that frequency for which that person may need when it's come to healing. So for example, I use emerald green quite a lot for healing, and I will actually, I'm not kidding. So I pulled out my Vogel crystal. So I would point that, ask the person, and you can do this distance wise too. It doesn't have to be in person. Is that too close? What are you feeling? Are you feeling anything? If you're not, that's fine. And I will actually, even if my mind can't picture it, like say it's been a crazy day, I'll pull up the picture emerald green on my phone and just stare at that and imagine sending it through there. So I'm not having to pick up what the frequency is of what I'm trying to heal. I just intuitively feel what color might I need. Or if I don't know, you can use things like a rainbow, and the body will take whatever it needs, and then the rest just goes into the ethers, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be that complicated. That because we all have guides, we all have angels. I always say, whether you believe in them or not, they believe in you and they're with you. All we have to do is give them permission that we either want to know them more or we want to work closer with them. But they are here to help us succeed in why we are here, because none of us is here by accident. We're all here for a reason.
So
100%.
I
don't know if that makes sense, if what I'm saying, but we don't have to make it that complicated. We can rely on source, if you want to call it God, Gaia, whatever your belief system is. Even if you don't have a belief in a higher power than, you know, the universe or the earth or whatever you want to use, something that you believe in, and channel that and ask for their assistance.
Essentially, there is an intuitive interpretation to all of what we're talking about, and you don't necessarily need the left brain interpretation for it to exist. And the same goes in the opposite sense, wherein you can interpret this world in a very left brain fashion, and that's just as valid. You will be missing a part of the whole, and you could exist this way for some time, but eventually I think that most of us would yearn for what we were missing there. But, you know, you bring up some good points, you know, especially when it comes to the way of intuition. It isn't really that difficult. It's not that complicated, and it doesn't have to be. If you're feeling something and you're going into that interpretation, allowing the universe, as long as you are the coordinator, the universe is the actuator. You know what I'm saying?
I call myself the mailman, because all I'm doing is delivering whatever I'm channeling or running through. And we all do that. We all can run energy. We all have intuition. Some people call it their gut. They may know that they know, but they don't know why they know. Same thing. I want to show you a little trick. It's a cool party trick, but it's anybody can do this. So this is a pendulum, for example. I'll try and hold my arm still. Now I'm going to tell this to move in circles.
Sorry, I have something in my eye. Keep on.
I'm getting it to move in circles with my mind. Now I'm going to tell it to stop. Now I'm going to get it to go together. I'm trying not to move my arm. So you can see I'm not moving my hand. I'm doing this with my mind, with energy. I'm not a magician. I'm not powerful. And I'm going to get it to stop. Anybody can do that with practice. That's how, as human beings, we have so much potential that we've been told is never possible. And I swear to God, if we were on a bigger camera, I can show you, I did not move my hand. I was holding my hand. I can do it again if you want. It's not a special pendulum. You could probably do it with this neck. I could do it with anything. So once we start to learn how to feel energy, that's when it's really powerful. Like if you're going into a situation maybe where you know you're going to be around somebody hostile, you were talking about your aura and stuff, we know, and believe it or not, this is going to sound super crazy. A lot of it has to do with imagination. So imagine like pulling it in, and believe it or not, and it's been proven, like I said, with Carillion photography, with you know, there's all kinds of ways they can prove this, but we can do that and so much more. We can do telepathy. We can do all these kind of things we've been told we can't. It just takes power. It just takes power. Sorry, it just takes a belief in it, practice. And sometimes you do have to unlock certain things, like with Kundalini energy, or I was mentioning about, you know, with this English company that was mentioned in that video, by watching these certain pictures and reconnecting the DNA, if you will, to the universe is what I was talking about. And this sounds really woo-woo. You know, I'm not really woo-woo or astral, but these are things that are possible and we're capable of.
What the hell was I going to say? Oh man, I had it. Anyway, I'll get right back to that. You've said so much. No, it's fine. I like to hear where you're going with things. We'll get back to that. God damn it. Anyway, Coral Ann, she asks if I will put the channel site in the notes after the show for the binaural beats. And if you throw me that website, I'd be more than happy to provide that, Coral. Great question there. And Area 503 with the $5.03 super chat. Thanks a lot, my friend. Good to see you here as always. And I look forward to seeing what you do next on your channel. Guys, if you haven't checked out Area 503, you need to go over there and spend some time. You won't be disappointed. His analysis on UFO sightings and the depth that he goes into and the entertaining humor that he overlays with his awesome personality. It's just a fantastic production. You guys got to check it out.
Answer a question in here, because Mario UFO says, I
yes,
swear, it's like telepathically connected to her. No, it's not. I swear to God to you, if you practice with it, and the best way to start is with your hand underneath, okay? And it's not magic. Okay, you can see I'm not moving my hand. I'm going to get it to swing back and forth. Now I'll get it to stop. I said it's a cool party trick, but anybody can do this with practice. You can see I'm not moving my hand. It's not telepathically connected. It's literally focusing your energy And once you practice, it's like I said, it sounds super woo-woo and astral, but it's not. We're made up of energy and atoms. That's why I'm getting into this with you, because we're talking about sacred geometry. That's all it is atoms, the matrix, if you will.
Mm-hmm. My question is that, of course, I'm familiar with the pendulum method as well. But my question is, because everybody always asks, are you moving your hand just a little bit? And being a professional magician for some time in my life, I understand that there are movements you can make that are imperceptible. And that's the way that it is. What if you were to perhaps make some sort of hanger wherein the metal connects to the chain like a small screw? And you were able to, because I would assume that you may need to connect with this energetically through your, physical touch. Maybe if you were able to touch it there, and then, it would activate.
I've never tried. Like, I know I can't make like a pencil move or something with my, I guess if I practiced stuff, I could. But
I think it would be kind of cool.
I tried to hold back and hold my hand so you could see. And I told you what movement I was going to make. You're right. But I'll be very honest with you. I am no magician in any way, shape, or form. And again, if you were in front of me, you would see it. And probably I've taught other people how to do it. Like, it's not that hard. And you know who actually showed me how to do it? And he's not really into a lot of this stuff. My partner, Del. But he's really
interesting.
Energy, like really. And like I said, anybody can do this. Like, that's why I say I think we can do telekinesis and telepathy. It just takes practice. But like I said, and again, this is almost segueing into remote viewing, is that just as we come into Earth, everybody has gifts. Some people are natural born athletes, musicians, mathematicians, leaders, you name it, right? Does that not mean, though, that we can't learn other skills? Absolutely. Some people come onto this planet being natural born remote viewers. But does that not mean we can't learn how to do it? We can. Absolutely.
I agree with that. If it's something intrinsic, then it's already there. It's just latent. So, we could relearn that or remember it. And, it would be just as effective as somebody who came in with that remembrance already, in a very possible way. These things are very interesting to look at. And, you're going into the remote viewing. And I think that this plays another part. One of the reasons I suggested that experiment is because while you and I, and perhaps many of the people that are in our chat tonight listening in, they understand, they've seen some of this stuff before, but there are people who want to pretty much alleviate any sort of variable that would go in contrast to the claim that you're trying to make. So this would just be another interesting experiment in the way of validity for people who need that, I think. Yeah. It's an interesting idea.
There'd be
hey, Ash Dobbs, thank you.
Oh, go ahead.
Absolutely. I didn't mean to cut you off, though.
Go ahead. No.
Ash Dobbs, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thank you very much, brother. He says, great show always. And I see you in here all the time, man. Thank you for supporting us. In addition, there we have Mr. Catfish 2100 with a $5 super chat. Always reach for the stars, man. You know what? I think we're actually in a place wherein that star is attainable. Oh, I know I wanted to mention too, in the way of imagination. Imagination, the way that it's been given to us, is one of the biggest fallacies in the way of perception. We've been taught to believe that it's something that has no real grounding in life. There's no real need for it. It's absolute fantasy. It's something removed from us. You have an imagination. It's close to hallucination. They pretty much carry the same gravity. Now, the fact of the matter is, if thought manifests, every single thought that you have would actuate on some level. And if that's the case, your imagination, well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to physically be, propelled into that particular thought form, but you may find yourself very much involved and developed in whatever you're starting to think. There are many people out there who are interested in, let's say, the Lord of the Rings. So, they can't necessarily go down to Middle Earth, but they will basically do everything they can to surround themselves with, the paraphernalia and, other things that resemble that what they see in their imagination and where they are. It's very similar to a dream. And of course, imagination and dream could be on a certain parallel plane, but that has yet to be discovered in any sort of concrete way. But it's still something interesting to think about. So when we're talking about remote view, yep. Sorry, go right ahead. You interrupt me too. You know how I am.
Michael and I are like this, and we just like talk.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I had Paul Anthony Wallace on my channel. He's from 5D TV on YouTube, all kinds of stuff. Right? He's really into ufology and all sorts of things. So we were talking about even what's going on, that this isn't necessarily even coming from this planet. But then we got into the discussion about if it really didn't come from this planet and there's, say, aliens that really wanted their planet back and are causing all this to happen, then we got talking about human beings. And I think he has something with this. He was talking about that if they really created or had human beings to be their slaves, if you will, okay, say we had a nefarious alien race that took over the earth. And I know it sounds crazy, but so he's almost thinking that they may have created the human 1.0 version, meaning very high functioning. A lot of these things we're talking about came naturally, what have you. But because they were so intelligent and evolved, if there was another race here originally, they're going to not want us around, because why? We're not going to want to serve them, right? So he almost wonders if we were downgraded. And the reason why he says this is, and it makes a lot of sense to me, somebody's had a near-death experience. Somebody has had a concussion, really banged their head, been in a coma, anything like that. And all of a sudden, if they're well again, they seem to have acquired a new skill that they never had before. Where did that skill come from? Or did that, whatever assault to the brain, if you will, or, you know, this big life event when you've had a near-death experience, did it flick on one of those light switches that were turned off? Is it still there, or can we unlock it? So that's what I was trying to say. Like, I think we do have this potential. It's just a matter of unlocking it.
And just to expound upon that a little bit, you know, we're talking about an injury to the head and recollecting something, you know, that jogs, you know, your next behavior in this incarnation. Now, what about the cellular memory that you could actually add on top of that, wherein, you know, you become a virtuoso, you become a savant, and next thing you know, you have the cellular memory kicking in, and then, you know, it's just a matter of, and again, I use this word, remembering. We're bringing it all back together. And I love the play of words that, you know, we can find, and some might say some sort of form of apophenia, but honestly, I think that there's something in there, at least in the way of vibration. Yeah, really, really great points here, Lorilei. I love it. Now, you know, remote viewing, have you yourself had any experiences or experiments in this particular field?
So what happened was, I've always wanted to use my gift to try and help find missing children and things like that, right? So I ended up having this gentleman, Chuck Kennedy, on my channel, Dr. Chuck Kennedy. Great guest. He's a nurse, but he's got a doctorate in neurology. And he has actually, he did this to me. We first had a first conversation. He goes, do you know where psychic ability comes from? I said, well, of course, it's your third eye and your pineal or pineal gland. He goes, wrong. So what he's done this with over 400 to 600 different, it's probably more than that now, people claiming to have psychic ability. He was joking on my show. He goes, it's not like you gave me $1 million to go buy an MRI or CT scan, Lorilei. So he said, what did I use that was next to best? He said, what did we use back when we wanted to map brain areas and brain waves? He has an EEG machine. He's actually got a video on YouTube showing one of my good friends, Katrina Cooper, who's a really excellent medium. And he was able to tell you and show you where in the brain she was using it. It's where he thinks he's located this is behind the left ear in the brain, back here. He calls it the region of psi. Now, the reason why I mention this is he also has coordinated about 5 to 7 teams of remote viewers. And he has some that he calls the psychic angels, and he has some that are just they're not there with psychic ability. They're just amazing remote viewers. He's taken a variety of different techniques, like controlled remote viewing, which the military says they stopped doing, where the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats was actually based on that program with the military. And then he actually talked to the KGB and got a lot of information from them. He has an extraordinarily high rate of return to like accuracy of almost 94%. Now, this was
Wow.
a year and a half ago when we did this. So what he does, he's kind of like, if you will, Bosley from Charlie's Angels. So something comes in, there's somebody missing, or there's a cold case to solve, whatever it may be. He then sends it out to all his teams and he says, okay, this is what we got, whether it's a number, no matter what it is, what do you get? So part of this process is he has a meditation where he gets you into theta brainwave, because
Hmm.
apparently we're able to access. Now I've done his course, I've done some of his practice course, and all you get is a number, and you have to tell him, where is this? There's a process that you go through. It's really cool. And it's where you really learn to trust yourself, because as human beings, we second guess ourselves. You've been given a number. What if you're getting through the whole process, which involves sketching and all kinds of things, and you think Mount Rushmore? No, there's no way this could be Mount Rushmore with a 12-digit number I've been given. But I'm telling you, you can do it. You can be trained. And I had him on my show. He's been ill, so I haven't talked to him, but he solved, I believe that was 22 cold cases. They had recovered over 125 missing children. On top of that, and he told this fascinating story of actually they were looking for one girl that was missing, and they ended up breaking up an international child trafficking ring. They got there a half hour later. All these girls would have been gone overseas in a shipping container. They never would have been found. So there is something to it. I argue with our friend Joe Montaldo, who tells me that no, they gave up remote viewing because all you can find is places. BS. I learned in that course how to tell if a body is dead that you find remote viewing. I mean, it takes practice. I'm not at that level, but
Hmm.
you can go in. There are people that go into the future, can see if there's something that's going to work. You can go back in the past. You can go anywhere with this. It is mind blowing. And when they say the government gave this up, BS. They are still doing it. I'll bet $100 they are.
Well, it leads me to this next question here. Third phase of moon is in the house, guys. What's going on? Thanks for being here with us, man. I love it when you guys chime in. You always have great questions. Third phase of moon asks, does Lorilei think that Project Stargate is still an active project? Also, what's her thoughts on the late Jim Shannon, leader of the 1st Earth Battalion?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not familiar with Jim Shannon. I may, you have to probably give me a bit more information. I may have heard of him, but with Project Stargate, absolutely. Because part of this is I wanted to mention one of the original members of Project Stargate, Lynn Buchanan. He's quite elderly. He's still training people how to do remote viewing. There is a lady on Facebook by the name of Lori, I want to say Johnson. I looked it up for you, the page. It's called Intuitive Specialists. She offers a free 4-day masterclass where she will actually teach you how to do controlled remote viewing. She has a lot of free stuff on her page. So it's something cool to check out if you want to find out more about this. But anyways, back to their question, I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt, because if you were good enough, nobody should notice you when you're remote viewing.
What do you think that they might be using it for today? I mean, back in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s as well, they were trying to weaponize this in many different ways. And I wouldn't doubt that there is absolutely some aspect of weaponization. But as I've mentioned before, if this technology has been around the way that we're talking about it, reportedly, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, I would imagine if they're still doing it today, this technology or these methods are at such a level that it may even be incomprehensible considering what avenues they had to travel to get to where they are today. So, this is a really tough question, but I'll ask your opinion anyway. What do you think they might be using these techniques for if they are still using remote viewing?
So I've been doing a lot of research on a lot of different things, obviously, some of the stuff I've shared with you. But even a TV program, I forget what one it was that Dell was watching, but it was also in a couple documentaries I've watched. And what they've said is, and I believe this, wars aren't won by the battles that they've been fought. It's by what the spies have been able to uncover. So if you can have your spy not have to travel, say, all the way over to communist China or over to Russia, and you can do it from the comfort of your office or what have you, and you get it that refined that you can actually go forward in time, backwards in time. You could look at files. You could, I mean, the list is of possibilities is endless. Never mind, like you said, with the technology and the refinement that they have out there. Heck, you could go forward in the future, depending on what timeline, even see how the battle's going to turn out. Like, are we going to win the war? Is there going to be a new, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all kinds of things you can use this for.
I do actually, but I'm curious too, because this is actually a question I have, a personal question. When you go into these remote viewing sessions, which I've attempted to do before, and for me, it's quite linear. I'm looking for something. Usually, I'm looking for something I lost. How would one know to perhaps jump into a different timeline or a different result of an event that was upcoming? I mean, is it again just sort of an intuitive thing where you say, I would like to see, you know, what happens if this is the outcome or what have you, or is there less in the way of mental organization with that sort of thing?
I would think, and again, this is my humble opinion, that you would have to set the parameters for what you wish to see, maybe all the outcomes. Like, we're looking at quantum computers now, right? And they're the ones that can give you all the outcomes, all the potentialities. If you could have a human being set those parameters and maybe possibly work with a quantum computer, like, we're talking really far in the future, but I believe technology is 50 years in the future than what we've ever been told or shown. So if they're able to interface, which we're seeing some of the stuff with AI, with a human being, there's super soldier program, there's all kinds of stuff. How do we know that they're not interfacing a human being with a quantum computer and picking up what they can from remote viewing, but having the computer, now I'm getting really deep, the computer actually show you all outcomes and variables.
Okay, so that's an interesting thought. You know, in the way of AI, you know, we talk about how they're sort of and getting into this today very heavily and integrating it, and every day there's learning that's been had in many different ways involving this technology.
Yes.
Again, in respect to us being somewhat behind in what the military has in the way of technology, do you think that they've already developed AI to such an extent that it's now automatic, it's out there, perhaps maybe on Mars or the moon or something like that, that they've already developed this? And before you answer, one of the reasons I ask this is because I find this really interesting contrast, wherein, for example, if there's a government faction that knows that extraterrestrials exist and it's legitimate, they're allowing these guys at, you know, what is it, SETI? I can't remember. But one of these stations here where they're out there sending messages to you know, whoever's going to bounce it back, radio signals, hoping to hear a response. We get the code, and you know, we're trying to decipher this. It's sort of like a circus. These guys must be sitting up in a pavilion somewhere, just looking down. Man, look at these guys! They're still shooting radio signals up to the stars. So, what are your thoughts on this?
About AI, you mean, or
yeah, about the AI? Yeah, about the AI and how they may have it.
Is, and again, in my opinion, and just talking to various people I've had on the show, Dan Willis is a great resource to talk to about this. He used to be in the military, used to work for ABC News. He also was one of the expert scientist witnesses. He's the one that worked with Marcel Vogel. It was March 6, 2002, I believe, at the New York Press Club. It was supposed to be a world event. You probably will know all this. They were supposed to talk about, with all the evidence they had, about the existence of extraterrestrials, and instead it was made a joke of. So I believe that we are so far advanced that we're going to be the last to know. And I think, even with being very careful, because I know the source that we are streaming to, that what we are seeing evolving right now in this day and time, this age, that there has to be a lot more use, I'll say, for what's coming, what we're seeing. And I'm talking about the JAB, because in my personal opinion, from a medical perspective and the amount of research I've done, this is not a VACCINE in any sense of the word. I believe actually it is a chip. I do believe that it has some AI potential. So yeah, there has to be a use for it. They're not putting that in there for nothing. So that's my words, my thoughts on it.
Well, that's you know, it's very interesting to look at it in that respect. I mean, if they have perfected it to the point where they are able to utilize it in that respect, I mean, it's beyond fascinating for so many reasons, and of course, incredibly concerning in that way. Now,
diagnosis, all kinds of stuff. You will hear certain physicians who were involved in this, community and have been, that there may be no need for doctors in the next 3 years, or nurses, or pharmacies, because of what they're putting in there and the programmability of it, to be able to direct through the cloud to diagnose you, to be able to send medication, to send whatever they want. Yeah. Can I prove it? No, but I believe in the sources that I've been listening to and researching with, because they've been correct all along. Long before this came out, been following them, and everything they've said, they've been correct about. Mm-hmm.
No doctors, no nurses, and so forth. Do you see this in the way of more of like a panacea? Could this possibly be something positive? Could we turn it into that direction? I know we have a lot of fear over AI and so forth, but could we actually use it positively in the way you described?
As I said, with sacred geometry or anything on this planet that has a beautiful positivity to it, somebody will always figure out a way to use it in negativity. And if you ask me my opinion, no, I don't think this is a good thing at all. I don't personally, because you think about that, somebody is going to know everything you were doing, what your heart rate is doing, your blood pressure is doing, what all your whole, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is no such thing as privacy anymore. There's many other things, because if they're able to deliver, say, medications that way, what else can they deliver?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, the problem is that the certain hands that this technology might be in, the intentions they have. If they were to set up some sort of database wherein it was accurately measuring and calculating, what was wrong with you, and this is sort of something that people have certain things in their bodies that are a medical quality, for example, pacemakers. But of course, we're not tracking that. But they are in our bodies, and they do work in an organic sense and do go along right with what we have. But again, it's about the hands that have this sort of technology. I agree with you in certain respects.
Have you heard of gene origami? I just about died when I found out about this. And it was listening to two scientists talking about this. They have the potential and the know-how to create basically full genes, like an origami figure, that requires a lock to unlock it. They can put anything in the origami genes, explosives. They could put anything, like not necessarily nefarious, like you said, something for positive, but it needs a lock to unlock it. So that could be 5G. That could be something in the environment. It could be a certain tone. It could be a certain frequency. Now, there's two scientists admitting that technology exists. So they're admitting, what are they not telling us what else exists? That blew my mind about the gene origami. I just discovered that recently.
That's interesting. I don't know much about the gene origami, and I think you've mentioned this to me before as a subject, and I find it fascinating. Mm-hmm. I do believe that they are able to manipulate DNA. I think there have been many examples of that. And of course, when it comes to something like what we're speaking on here, the impact at large may not be felt for some years here. I mean, maybe we get 4 or 5 years down the road, and whatever's there is actually a deleterious sort of thing that happens over time. And it's not necessarily that everybody just kind of drops one day. It might affect you on the DNA level, wherein generations that come after inherit this sort of deleterious effect, and eventually kind of wanes down to whatever, the intention was originally,
Or I've wondered about black-eyed kids. I've seen some pictures that have come from certain areas that have just been uncovered, say necessarily under the ground, that I was horrified when I saw what I saw, because nobody knows, is this a mutation? Was it a mixture of, say, alien DNA and human? I'll send you the picture after the show. You'll see what I'm talking about. And again, was it from something else? Because I don't have just because somebody tells me something or sends me something does not mean that's what it is. Like, nowadays, you've got to research, and you still don't always have the answers either.
That's absolutely true. And I wanted to ask you, there was one woman, a famous Russian woman, who was able to move objects, and Nina Kulagina.
Yeah.
Nina Kulagina. No, that's not it. Is it? Is it Nina, or is it
I'm stuck on the pendulum? I know you. I swear to God, I'll go
Nina.
And tell me, and I didn't move my arm, and I'm not a magician. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Nina Kulagina.
Yeah.
is a Russian citizen who, or was a Russian citizen who was indoctrinated into their programs, and there are videos, you can go find them on YouTube right now, where she is moving certain things with energy. Now, the interesting thing is that usually when we talk about telekinesis, we're talking about something that does not involve your appendages. You should be able to kind of just sit there with the mind, use the force, right? You should be able to move these objects. I do find that some people that are able to conduct this sort of experiment, they do incorporate their hands. Now, I don't know if this is something for reinforcement or if a visual thing, but
No,
the
you
way that
channel
she was
it.
doing on a lot of objects. Yep, go ahead.
You channel it. Just like I said, that you can pull your aura, if you will, in or outwards. Like when I was in university to become a nurse, I had the anatomy coloring book. I also found, and I thought, no, we never know where our conversations are going, privately or personally, but this is actually
Nope.
like the anatomy coloring book, but of the whole spiritual body, of the aura, of the chi or key lines, as they're called, acupuncture lines, all the names. It helps you remember, right? You're using a different part of your brain as you're coloring to remember these
Mm-hmm.
things. So it exists. So yes, I believe, if you asked me, I would think that by doing this, right, and you would be focusing, because my hair is sticking up, you would be focusing the energy going down your arm and out through your hand. And like I said, I know it looked like, and again, you being, I forgot that you did magic. Like that's why I was joking. It's a cool party trick. Because if you were in front of me, heck, I'd let you hold my arm if you wanted. You can hold my arm and make sure I'm not moving it. And it's just with practice. But some of the things you asked me if I could do, I've never tried. And just because I wasn't able to do it, say if you asked me to do it and I wasn't able to do it, doesn't mean that I can't do it. I just might have to practice.
That makes sense. And, it reminds me of a time I met somebody who said, I have snakes in my hands. Excuse me, I'm going to grab a drink here. Throat's dry. Okay. Sorry about that. It's hot as hell in here. Good Lord. She said she had snakes in her arms, and these were energetic expressions that she had garnered through certain practice in the way of Native American culture. And I remember I asked her, well, what does that mean? She says, well, I can literally project from my arms this band of energy that'll go out and literally kind of feel in a very tactile sense, and I'll get that sensation into my arm and I can interpret it. So, I asked her to show me, this particular effect, and sure enough, when she went like this is what she was doing. It was a few of these. I could feel like this small impression on my chest, just enough that I could feel it when she was pushing outward, and then as she came back in, it would recede, and it was going in tandem with her movements. And I thought that was so interesting. And I've heard that we actually have eyes, so to speak, like your third eye in a sense, on your hands. Yeah. Was it a meridian or is it more of a chakra?
It's a chakra, as I understand. So before I do healing work or whatever, you activate the chakra. So you rub them. Same as if you want to make a better connection with your third eye, you can just gently rub it and it'll help activate the energy in it. So there's all kinds of things. Like, and again, I'm not trying to promote my YouTube channel, but I walk people through things like grounding and gritting. And I tell people it takes
you should be though, right? You should be.
It takes
tell us about it.
To watch the video than it does to do it. And the reason why is, and again, maybe it's just me, I love to teach, but I don't want somebody after they've watched the video and say they haven't got it on, they think, now what was step 4? What did she say? What did she say? So I walk you through how to create or craft it yourself. For example, I have another one called the Love Shield. So many people are very sensitive to energy and are empathic, right? So you hear a lot of people, oh, you got to shield your energy. You got to shield your energy. Well, I don't want you coming from a place of fear. I believe that love is the most powerful force out there. So I get you to go into your heart space, focus on whomever you love the most. And then I walk you through how to create that shield. And then I talk to you about certain colors. And then, for example, even my son with severe autism, he calls it the bubble. And he understands it. Mommy, I put the bubble up tonight for everybody at home. My other son, in many years, I didn't know what he did. I taught him because we lived in a very paranormal house. We're on Paranormal Survivor. I know we've talked about it on another show. So I had to teach the boys how to shield their energy. Well, my oldest son just a couple of years ago, you know what he used? He never ever told me till a couple of years ago. Angel
Hmm.
wings. He pictured angel wings. Other
Oh,
people, I
interesting.
walk you through whatever works for you so that you kind of create and craft it yourself so you'll remember. Same as with feeling energy. Because like I said, for example, red feels like something to me, but it may feel like something else to you. So you create your own color field, but at least you're able to know what energy feels like to you. So it kind of is the starting path into how to do some of these things. Other thing I wanted to add really quickly, some of the most powerful telekinetic beings on the planet are teenagers. Their energy is so powerful. They're going between childhood and adolescence. Emotions are all over the place. So, say somebody has a very explosive moment, they potentially can move things with that emotion in their minds and energy.
I've heard this. This is something that has been proposed actually many times, and it's very interesting. I'll relate very quickly an experience my father had. Some of you have heard this that I talked about on another show,
Mhm.
but very quickly. My father is spiritually minded, but he does not dive into the research the way that we do. But in his youth, he was going to spiritualists and getting psychic readings and clairvoyance and so forth. So at one point, he was sitting down and the woman said, you're a very powerful energy. She said, did you know you're able to project that energy? And he said, no, what do you mean? She goes, do you remember a time when you walked into a room and you were really upset and you threw your hands like this and something fell? And he goes, no, not really. I don't remember. And it took him a little while, but he was able to connect it, shortly after, I believe, where he said he had an experience where he came in, either he was in college or he was living out in an apartment, again, very young, very upset, very emotional. He swung open the door and he flung his hands and he did it like towards a wall. And there was a painting on the wall. And as soon as he did this, the damn thing went pop, boom,
Yeah.
fell all the way down. Now, he never thought of this, but again, if we're talking about energy that can be possibly projected from the
Mhm.
hands itself, in the way of emotion and energy, well, there's a really good example of that being manifest
Mhm. And
in
somebody
way
would,
of color.
oh, it just fell off the wall. It was just a coincidence. Like you said, it took a long time for your dad to put that together. Now, imagine if you were able to bring forth that type of energy from that type of emotion, but not having to get in that really upset state. Like if you were able to practice this and harness it, if you will, we're capable of that. We are capable of so much. We can heal ourselves. We have so many things we can do that we've been told are not possible. The brain is most malleable from 0 days of age to the age of about 7. And you hear that. We even hold beliefs like that really deep seated because, and again, no blame on a parent. A parent is doing the best that we possibly can out there. But children are
Right.
sponges. They pick up everything, beliefs about money, I mean anything about love life, about success, because even children hear things and we think they don't hear it. They hear things that we're talking about as adults. They may not understand it, but they kind of all tuck it away, right? Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and they're going through such a transition, not just
Mhm.
physically, but energetically. I mean, I think it's one of the larger transitions you go through in life, but it's something that a lot of people don't realize is that there's another transition that you go, at least in the way of energy. And of course, there's a physical component that happens towards the end of your life, wherein, this is another sort of boost in livelihood wherein you could accept that and go down that path, excuse me, and still have energy in your later and elderly years. A lot of people don't know that that's a process, and whatever they've accumulated from life really is what drags them down towards the end of their years, and it's a really unfortunate thing to see.
I'm writing a
Just to
book.
say something real quick. What's that?
No, I'm writing three
What'd you
books.
say?
And my last book
Okay.
is because I worked in palliative care a lot besides a NICU. And I'm collecting stories from nurses mostly, but first responders as well, to the incredible, miraculous things that we encounter, we see, we hear, we share with our patients as they transition from this lifetime into the veil, if you will, or transitioning back home, as I call it, because we
Mhm.
witnessed some really incredible things. Sorry, I know we've gone way over here. I'm sorry. I could talk you
No,
through.
it's quite all right, and I do enjoy our conversations. I'm going to look to wrap it up in just a moment here because Gufon, will be on at 10 o'clock, guys, and that's in 6 minutes over on YouTube. Please go ahead and check him out. His channel is growing incredibly rapidly, and there's a great chat that has swollen up into that particular channel, and they are stuck there, and it's lovely. You guys got to go and check him out. His show is incredibly entertaining for those of you who have not visited, and of course incredibly informational in way of ufology and everything current and late breaking, the same way as Third Phase of Moon is, who will be on later tonight, I'm sure, with a show. Go ahead and check your 4 o'clock listing there on the Eastern time in the AM. So you gotta keep those red eyes open, you know what I mean? So before we go here, can you tell us, is there anything that you have up and coming in the way of projects, or whether you're working with your podcast, and of course, where can everybody find you and go and listen to your material?
Thank you. Okay, so you can find me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock if you want to book a reading, or I do crystal Reiki or other energy healing, Akashic Records. And I also do mentoring. I have some mentoring. I'm working with a fellow light worker right now out of Atlanta, Georgia. We're trying to put together, if you will, a very affordable little package for people learning about some of these techniques and things about how they can do it for themselves, and learn how to harness all these abilities that we all have. I have 2 groups very quickly on Facebook: Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for all the things like some of the things we've talked about tonight. Then you can find me. My show right now is on United Public Radio Network. We lost our main channel on YouTube, so it's now under the UFO Paranormal Network. I'm on Monday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And guess who my guest is on Monday night? You.
I will be with Lorilei on Monday night on UPRN, and we always have
all things. That's how we didn't go there tonight, right? Because we're going to be talking all about that on Monday night, I hope, and more. Mm-hmm.
Well, honestly, I mean, I love talking about the UFOs, but I wanted to do something this evening, and I touched upon it a little bit last evening, but I wanted to keep tonight, kind of on a different topic, because you know what, it's fun and of course very important to be talking about ufology and what's happening right now, but we don't want to burn out and forget some of the other things that sort of energize us when we revisit it. Believe me, it's only a quick deviation, a slight hiatus, and we'll be back on Monday talking about UFOs and ufology at large. So I hope you guys enjoyed this program, and I hope that you enjoyed Lorilei coming back, because I want to have her back again. I don't know about you guys. Oh, of course. Honestly, I've seen some great comments here in the chat. Really enjoying you as a guest specifically. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, and tell them to come watch on Monday night, because we have a chat there too. I keep an eye on the chat. I try and make you part of the chat, and I love having Michael, my producer and owner of United Public Radio Network, loves him now too. He's had him, Joe Montaldo, on his show. So
Joe Montaldo. Been on there a couple times at least, I think. Two times, and
told me that I just love Michael. I said, "Aren't you glad I introduced you?"
I appreciate that. I mean, he's a great guy, and I really enjoy his perspective on things. I love going back and forth with him the same way I like going back and forth with you. It's always about the perception. It's always about perspective. And, we each have our own in respect to the path that we have decided to traverse. So thank you, Lorilei. I'm going to pull you off for a moment. I'll say my proper goodbyes off camera, but thank you once again for being here with us tonight. All right, guys, thank you very much. We're going to wrap this up. GoofOn's on in 2 minutes. And I want to, again, implore you to go back over to GoofOn and join us there. I'll be there. I'm coming in. And, participate in the chat and really get into it, guys, because, again, this is fantastic programming. It's the best programming you're going to find right now. Forget about your television. Turn it off. Throw it out the window, unless you're hooking up, YouTube to it, where you can watch Rich's show. That would be okay. But otherwise, just get rid of the damn thing and all the cables that go with it. Seriously, can't say enough great stuff about Rich from GoofOn, and of course, Third Phase of Moon. Dr. J has been doing some great work recently too. Please go and check out his channel as well, Dr. J Radio Live here on YouTube. All right, guys, thank you very much for being with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back next week on Wednesday with Alex. I'm not even going to try to say his last name. I'm going to say Alex for now. I don't want to offend him, but he'll be here on Wednesday, and I may have somebody coming on Thursday or Tuesday. We're tentative at the moment, so keep your eyes out. I'll try to post these up a good day in advance so you guys are well prepared for what we plan on doing. So once again, Boy, I didn't queue up what I was supposed to. Once again, I didn't do what I was supposed to. Jesus. Rich, don't kill me. I know you'll start at 5 after. That's my saving grace here. All right. Once again, thank you guys for your contributions in the way of super chats. It really does help the show. I understand, you guys make a conscious effort to go in, line up the super chat, send your message away. And I want to let you know that I really appreciate it. All of it goes back into the show. And we are going out to California this next month in July to film with Third Phase of Moon for their upcoming follow-up to Countdown to Disclosure, which is still in the highest top ranks up there on Amazon Prime. Go ahead and check that movie out if you guys haven't seen it already. All right. So we're going to get out of here for the evening, but thank you once again, guys, for being here with us. Moderators, you guys are the best. I appreciate each and every one of you. And in the meantime, guys, stay curious, stay informed, and stay up with your eyes on the skies. Because as Richie loves to say, if you ain't looking up, you ain't looking out for ufology. That's Rich from Goof On. Cheers. All right, you guys can talk and stuff at normal volumes now, okay? No more jumping, though, so help me God, no jumping. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mute the mic. There you go, guys. Yes, I have little ones. Misty OC Dragons, thank you for the $1.49 super sticker. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.